When you are a single man over the age of 30, pretty much everybody you interact with treats you like you're a mutant or something, like you're defective. And really, it starts earlier than that, like in your late 20s. But when you are a single man over the age of 30, everybody thinks there's something wrong with you. I do have some advice on how you can hopefully avoid some of the negative assumptions people make about you as a single man. But when you are an older single man, it's harder to get a job. Everybody you talk to acts like you're some kind of creep or you're a serial killer or something. Even if you're like me, where it's obvious why I'm single, I'm ugly as shit and I haven't had a real job in almost a decade, people still look at you like you're a cartoon villain or something. Like, I don't know, it's like people think I spend my free time tying women to train tracks or something and then watching from a distance as I twirl my mustache. But I love women. I respect women. Like, okay, for example, my mom is a stupid, narcissistic cunt, and she's also big time retarded. But I still love that dumb bitch because for all our differences, I do understand and appreciate all that she's done for me over the years. And just in general, I think women are important. They give birth to the babies and they do the biggest part of child rearing. They raise children into adults. And that is probably one of, if not the most important task that a person can undertake. Now, currently, we do happen to live in a very sick society where women are often indoctrinated into focusing on all the wrong things. So a lot of them these days, they ain't really acting right, but I do love and I respect women. So much so, in fact, that for the past few months, I have significantly reduced my consumption of corn. But yeah, being a single man, currently in my 30s, people act like, well, if you're still single at that age, then that could only possibly be because you're a bad person. Because most people still believe all the old platitudes like there's someone out there for everyone, and if you just be yourself, you're destined to meet somebody. So just imagine, if you actually truly believe deep down that everybody has their soulmate and you can find them just by being yourself, if that's what you actually believe, then you probably would assume that, well, if a guy's still single at an older age, then he must be a bad person. He must be some kind of hateful bigot or something, or like a raging misogynist. Or maybe he's a criminal. Maybe he's an addict or an alcoholic. Maybe he worships Satan. Maybe he, they might even think maybe he's a PDF file. People actually think things like that about chronically single men past a certain age. See, they think that. It's not an uncommon thought that people have. Even if you're ugly as shit, like I am, that should be the clue. Like, oh, that man is single because he's ugly, so women don't find him attractive. But normies, the average person doesn't think like that. They just, that wouldn't even cross their mind. They just think, surely there must be an equally ugly as shit woman out there where it's like, you're just meant to be together. So if you are single, that means either you choose to be, which makes you antisocial or gay or something, or your soulmate rejected you because you're some kind of wrongdoer. There's got to be some reason why you're single. The average person, especially older people, they just cannot comprehend that maybe I'm single because 99% of women on this planet think I'm ugly. And increasingly these days, they don't even want to have kids anyways, so it's not like they need to be with me for any reason. And maybe it'll change in the future when all the older people die out because they are the biggest offenders, the older generation. Because, for younger guys, even if you're average looking, so you're not even ugly, but even if you're average looking, then your chances of finding a girlfriend are pretty low. So I'm sure there's more awareness in the younger generation because of that, but really I don't know. Because women in general, women of all ages, are really just in denial about how hard it is out here for us men. And I think, unfortunately, a whole lot of men, even the men that are struggling themselves, they still believe all of the blue pill platitudes such as, just be yourself, bro. Just focus on yourself and you'll find your soulmate. Too many men fall for that crap. A guy will be like 33 years old, 5'5", looking like the Hunchback of Notre Dame mixed with, I don't know, fucking Flubber or something, just looking like a short, bald blob with bad posture. And he'll still be like, my soulmate is out there. I just gotta keep focusing on myself, keep working hard, and most importantly, I just gotta be true to myself. I just gotta be myself, and I will find the woman of my dreams, and we will fall in love, and we will live happily ever after. The cope is real, fellas. This is how normal people think. I'm not even... it sounds like I'm doing a bit. It sounds like I'm presenting a caricature of a person, but this is what most people actually think like. This is how normal people think. Even if they are also a single man over the age of 30 themselves, they will still assume that something is wrong with you if you're single. Like, brother, me and you are in the same boat. But that's how most people are. There's no such thing as critical thought for the average person. But that's not really the point of this video. I would love to have a meaningful relationship with a woman. I'm not perfect, obviously, I'm far from it, but I would not say that it's completely my own fault that I'm single. I'm forced to be single. I don't want to be alone. I just don't have any options. And I do think for most men that are single, it's not because they choose to be single. It's just really hard out here. And let's just get this out of the way. If you follow my channel, then you probably know that I did recently have my first ever girlfriend at the age of 36, and I broke up with her, but she made it very clear that she didn't really respect me, and she refused to be intimate with me, which I would be okay with. I would be okay with waiting till marriage to do that, but in this case, she had already given it up to at least one other guy. It was just a bad relationship, and not because of me, okay? It was because of her. And I'm pretty sure she was cheating on me with her professor anyways, if you can believe that. So, yeah. But even if a guy did have options, let's say a guy is slightly above average looking, he's got a decent job, and he is able to attract women, well, you can't really blame a guy for choosing to be single these days because the chances that any of his options are actually a good deal, it's pretty low these days. There's definitely some good women out there, and I don't think women have to be perfect to be what I'm referring to as a good woman. Okay, I don't have the highest standards in the world, believe it or not. I think there are some women that could stay faithful to their man and take care of the kids and everything, which is basically what I would consider to be a good woman. But like I say, I think there are some good women out there these days. Not a lot, some. So even for a man that has plenty of options, there's still a good chance that he doesn't actually have any good options. Like, he might not have any options if his goals are to find a partner in life that will truly support him and raise his children and help to instill his values in the next generation. So that might not be an option. So you shouldn't just assume a guy is like some kind of morally bankrupt player, or that, oh, he just likes to use women for sex or whatever, because maybe he's actually never met a woman that doesn't just believe whatever the left-wing media tells her to believe, just as an example. So being single, even as an older guy that you might think has plenty of options, being single might still be the best choice for him. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what a man chooses to do, he chooses to be single because he doesn't have the best options available, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. That is a reasonable choice to make. And if the roles were reversed, nobody would blame the woman and nobody does blame women when they choose to just go the route of being a girl boss and not dating at all. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Everybody is fine with that. But when it's a man, people got a big problem with it. People have a huge problem with it. That's just how it is. I've heard it said before that if you are single as a man, when you interview for a job, you should just lie and say you're married. And I think that's pretty good advice. You should 100% lie and say you're married in your job interview, because they will ask, by the way. I don't know if women get this question when they interview for jobs, and younger guys probably don't get this question as much either. I know when I was in my early 20s, I didn't always get asked this, but as a man in your late 20s or older, when you interview for a job, at least 90% of the time, they will ask you about your marital status. And being single is the wrong answer. I'm not saying it's impossible to get a job as a 30-plus-year-old single man. There's a lot of factors involved, but being single is always a detriment. I would even go so far as to say that you should probably buy a wedding ring to wear to interviews just to really sell it, because it is important. It's that important. I think the idea is just that it's seen as a red flag if you're an older single guy, because for all the reasons I've already mentioned, most people will make a wide variety of negative assumptions about you and about your character and your work ethic. I mean, the average person will assume you are bad if you're not either married or engaged to be married by the time you're 30. They think you're either a player or you're like a hateful inkwell or something. So either way, they don't want to be around you. So they don't want to work with you. Even if you're the most qualified candidate, getting a job is an uphill battle for single guys. And that goes for promotions too. If you are lucky enough to already have a job, good luck getting any kind of promotion if you're not married with 2 kids. I think part of it might be that people assume if you are married, then that must mean you're more responsible, I guess. So it's not always necessarily just that everyone thinks you're evil because you are single, but a married man always has the advantage in any kind of hiring or promotion process, or even business deals and things like that. Married guys have the advantage. And something that I have to mention, I already touched on this a little bit, but I got to talk about this. This is only a male problem. Nobody really cares if a woman is married. Nobody cares. If a woman is married, if a woman is single, it doesn't matter. That doesn't hurt her job prospects to be single. In fact, if a woman over the age of 30 is single, then most people will just assume that, well, that must be because so many men these days are hateful misogynists. There's no good men out there these days, so who could blame a woman for being single? And also, especially if she's even like kind of attractive, then being single as a woman is an advantage in the corporate world because, obviously, dudes be simping. So this is just a problem that is unique to men. I know women might get some backlash from their family for being single. Like her parents might try to pressure her into finding a guy to marry just so she can have kids. But on a broader societal level, I really don't think single women over the age of 30 have it that bad. I know they probably think they have it really bad because their options with which men will be willing to put up with them will decrease as they age, because most women only want the top 10% of men, but the top 10% of men usually aren't going to want to bother with the older gals because, why would you want an older woman when you could have a younger woman? That's just obvious. And I'm not even talking about physical beauty. There's emotional baggage and ran-through-itedness and everything that obviously most men that have lots of options are not going to want to deal with all that. But even so, the fact is, older women do still have lots of options compared to their male counterparts. They might not realize how fortunate they are because their options do diminish with age, and most women just don't realize how truly abysmal it is out here for men. So they think they have it bad, but really, in the grand scheme of things, and especially compared to men over the age of 30 that are still single, older single women don't have it that bad. So being single as a man, it's just a really bad experience all around. Obviously, if you're like super good looking and you have women throwing themselves at you left and right, then being single and playing the field or whatever is probably great. You probably have a good time. But for the average guy, being single sucks. And nobody really understands it. Nobody understands the struggle that you're going through. Even other single guys. That's the thing that's so frustrating about it too, because there's so many other single guys of all ages. We're literally living through a freaking male loneliness epidemic, so you'd think there'd at least be a lot of other single guys that could sympathize with you and understand how it is, since they're in the same position themselves, but that's not how it is. Even those guys don't have any sympathy. If anything, other single men are probably the worst because, I don't know, I guess it's like a crabs in a bucket mentality. They see you as competition or something, or maybe they just want to keep you down so they feel better about their own situation. I don't know. I don't really know what it is. But other single men over the age of 30 really don't seem to be any more understanding than anyone else. And here's the other thing about all of this. Single men of all ages are largely disenfranchised. Our economy is absolute shit right now, as I'm sure most of you are aware. The unemployment rate might not look too bad, but that's pretty much just a fake statistic in multiple ways. I'm not going to get into all that right now, but the unemployment rate is not what nobody should even be looking at that. It's useless. But the labor force participation rates are currently at an all-time low. And guess what demographic makes up the biggest part of that? Single men. So even if other single dudes are the most likely to understand your struggle, those guys are also more likely to be unemployed, living with their parents, not going out and socializing much since, why bother? They probably don't have lots of friends anyways. And I think most guys that have dropped out of the workforce have also just given up on trying to date. So in your day-to-day life, you probably are not even encountering other single men in the proportionality that they actually exist in the population. And anytime you deal with any person in any kind of position of authority or whatever, like say someone interviewing you for a job, for example, that person is a lot less likely to be a single man themselves. So because single men are already so disadvantaged and disenfranchised, the problem just compounds on itself. Single men above the age of 30 are probably one of the most underrepresented demographics in pretty much any desirable position you can think of. But don't expect any affirmative action, okay? Don't expect any kind of hiring initiatives or anything like that. Nobody cares about us. And in fact, they just think it's always our own fault. They think we are defective. Or even worse, they think we are morally bad people. So nobody is going to help us. And there's really no hope of single men ever coming together as a group to build some kind of coalition to support each other. For reasons I've already mentioned, a lot of the time, other single men are the least understanding, so there really is no light at the end of the tunnel. So what can you do as a 30-plus-year-old single man to try to at least fit in and live your life as peacefully as possible? Well, in the workplace, you should just lie, as I've already talked about. Just tell everybody you're married if anyone asks, and they will ask, so you will need to tell this lie. But trust me, you really should just lie. Unless you want to be stuck at the lowest level in your workplace for the entire time you're there, just getting no respect whatsoever from your fellow coworkers, just lie about it. Just tell people you're married. Really, that's just the best advice I have for you in general. Just lie and act like you're not single. Obviously, you probably can't get away with lying to your immediate family or friends that know you really well. So in that context, I would say your best bet is just don't ever complain about being single. Don't bring it up. Don't talk about it. Don't try to make any self-deprecating jokes about the situation. That's just going to remind people that you're different. It's not going to work in your favor. Nobody's going to think, haha, well, he may be single, but at least he's funny. At least he knows it. He's quite an affable guy or whatever. Nobody's going to think that. If you joke about your situation, it's just going to remind people that you're single, and it's just going to put it in the top of their mind, and they're just going to think, oh, he's single. What a fucking freak. He must be a bad guy. So, yeah, just lie about it, okay? And if you can't lie about it, like if we're talking about friends and family that you absolutely, there's no way you could lie about being single to your own parents, just don't bring it up. Just don't talk about it. That's the best advice I can give you. That really is the best thing you can do. So, yeah, life as a single man after 30 is dog shit awful, and it's unfair, and frankly, it's just a bunch of horse hockey. So you should just lie about it or avoid talking about it in general because nobody cares. Nobody sympathizes with you, and they will use it against you. So if you think this video sucked and you never want to hear from me again, make sure to dislike the video and unsubscribe from the channel if you haven't already. And as always, thank you for watching.